Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to talk New York Football Giants versus the AFC South, of course. But first, I got to say, Touring the AFC South is sponsored by Niche Lux Life. You want candles with an experience and a unique flair? Then Niche Lux Life candles are for you. Just go to www.nicheluxlife.com, where every candle comes with a unique Spotify playlist. All right. And joining me on this episode, we're going to talk a little, like I said, Giants versus the AFC South, is someone that I've known for a good minute. He was down in Memphis for a minute. Then he went uptown to New York. Now he is covering the New York Football Giants. That would be Newsday's own Evan Barnes. What's going on, man?
Mike, man, that introduction was really awesome. I just got to tell you, that was a great introduction, man. But glad to be on, man. Like you said, we've been knowing each other for a long time. We were in Tennessee together in the state, and it's good seeing what you're doing. So I'm glad to help out and be a part of it.
Man, thank you again for coming on, man. I know you've been busy. Of course, you just mentioned before we were talking in the green room about just getting back to town, covering these New York Football Giants. And of course, there's been some noise this offseason, of course, with the New York Football Giants. Most notably, John Harbaugh being the new head coach. He came in to take over for a departed Brian Daboll, which we're going to talk about later. Of course, this offseason he was one of the most coveted head coaches in the NFL in terms of free agents. So how have you kind of seen his effect on this team so far, in just your limited time that you've seen them?
Well, for one, you see how John Harbaugh brings an aura of professionalism, someone who has done so much in the NFL, someone who's won a lot of games, someone who has just brought a sense of he knows what he's doing. The Giants have had so many hires lately where they've hired assistants who are first-time head coaches, and really you just see a guy who you don't have to worry about any adjustments. It's more like an adjustment to the team, of course, but he knows how to run a team. He knows how to run a practice. He knows how to run a training camp. And the players have really gravitated towards him. So really, there's an excitement about, hey, they have a coach who knows what he's doing. And that's really kind of what Giants fans are hoping for. That's what the team is hoping for. A coach who can bring that sense of, I've been there. I know what I'm doing. Hopefully we won't be rebuilding anymore if that's what what John Harbaugh would say. So, really, you just kind of see how he does. Like, we were in West Virginia this past week watching the first week of training camp, and you just see John Harbaugh walking around, looking at everything. He's a CEO type coach. He wasn't just staying with the offense; he was special teams, because obviously former special teams coordinator. But he's looking at the defensive backs. He's looking at everything else. He really is kind of like I don't want to say a 3,000-foot view because he's on the field, but he's got a view of everything. He's involved, but he lets his coaches work. He just tries to keep an eye on everything and keeps it sense of, I'm in charge, but I let my assistants coach, and I'm going to coach as well too. But it's a very different way of doing things. But I think it's what the Giants need, because they need a coach that can just come in, be professional, and kind of like what Darius Slayton said to us in the winter when the season ended. He wanted the coach who was Tom Coughlin-esque. Obviously, Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. Slayton wanted the coach like that, disciplined, professional, all those things that look the part. And that's what John Harbaugh has done so far since he was hired.
Okay. All right. So, of course, we're going to dive into the players, of course, now. And the first thing I got to ask, any updates on Malik Neighbors and, how he's looking so far? I know there's been talk about he could be ready for the first game. He could be this, he could be that. But, you've been there firsthand, so I know you would probably know a little bit better than anyone else.
Yeah, sure. Malik Neighbors is right now, he is still working his way back from that ACL meniscus injury that he had in week 4 last year. Right now, the last update we got, they had practice today. They're still in West Virginia. I'm back here in New York. But they had a walkthrough today, kind of a slower pace day because they did 3 days in pads in a row. So it was more of a walkthrough. Neighbors did do some team He was in some team drills really for the first time, but really it was like a slower pace. So it wasn't like full speed. He hasn't done that yet. He has not done full speed 11 on 11 drills. What he's been doing mostly is individual drills with the receivers, offense only install when it's just the offense on the field. He's running routes, doing some things like that. So that's a good sign to see. John Harbaugh seems like he's very optimistic that Neighbors can be ready at some point, early in the season. Like week 1 is the goal, but we're going to see. I think we'll have a better sense next week leading up to the first preseason game if he's trending for that. What we've heard from Harbaugh and General Manager Joe Shane led me to believe that week 1 was a goal, but might not be a possibility. But then when he didn't open his training camp on the PUP list, I think that was a good sign that he is trending in the right direction. So we will see. They've been slow playing this a lot. So really, we're not going to probably have a great idea until I'd say the second preseason game, maybe. We need to see by then, but wait and see. TBD.
Okay. All right. So let's go off into a few other players that drew a lot of excitement for the New York Football Giants. One of those being Arvo Reese, the number 1 pick for the New York Football Giants. Of course, plenty were picking Arvo Reese and having him playing off the ball, not necessarily someone that, everyone told us he was an edge rusher going into the draft, edge rusher. But the Giants picked him, and they're playing him off the ball, if I remember correctly. How did that kind of go over when people were talking about him? And so how does he look so far in the camp, and playing off the ball as opposed to being on the ball as an edge rusher like he was billed at as going into the draft?
Well, it's been pretty good so far. Harbaugh told us the day that he got drafted that they were going to start him at inside linebacker, which was interesting because we've heard about him as an edge rusher, and that's what he did. But what they see him as is long, lanky, athletic freak. I mean, they see him as somebody who can do a lot of things, whether it is rush the passer, whether it is stop the run, drop into coverage. They're going to use him in a lot of different ways, and that was made clear to us the minute he got drafted and we talked to Harbaugh. They see him as that versatile inside linebacker. And then when you look at pairing him next to a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who they signed this offseason, you have 2 linebackers that are 6'4", long, lanky arms. In the middle of the field, they're basically going to be a no-fly zone. As long, with their arms and everything. Like, that's kind of what the defense envisions. And so with Reese, I think we're going to be curious to see kind of how he adjusts to that. And so far, he's looked really good. I mean, John Harbaugh told us in rookie minicamp that Reese didn't miss any assignments. He was on it. And he told us again during training camp that he's been on point with his assignments. He's been doing what he's supposed to do. And again, that's something you were encouraged by as a rookie because it's one thing to do it in rookie camp. It's another to do it in training camp when you're going up against, the first team offensive line and first team players. It'll be another thing when he does it against, NFL players. But Reese has looked really good so far. He looks the part. He looks like he's very impressive. His teammates are very high on him. His speed, his Tyrone Tracy, the running back, said the other day, he's see ball, get ball. And man, when you hear somebody say that, that's the kind of mentality you want. So he's looking like a very promising young player, similar to what Abdul Carter was last year.
Okay. All right. So, of course, one guy that did show some promise would be Jackson Dart. But, one thing he does a lot is he runs pretty careless as a daredevil, as you say. For those that don't know, Marvel, Daredevil, Hell's Kitchen, by the way. But some of y'all got that, but we're going to leave that alone. But anyway, of course, running the ball, Jackson Dart can be reckless. He can be. So have you seen the Giants, kind of talk more to him and kind of impart on him more that, about protecting himself and still being a threat with his legs? Have you kind of seen them kind of talk to him about that with the new staff and kind of go over those different things?
Definitely. From Harbaugh to the quarterbacks coach, Brian Callahan, who I'm sure the AFC South listeners know him very well. That message has been communicated to him to be smart, to be careful, to basically they told him, like, look, we value your skills. We don't want you to change who you are. We want to use your legs, but we want you to be smart because we need you on the field. It's been communicated. It's been stated. And Dart has gotten it. Dart understands it. Let's see what it looks like when the games count. Let's see if he can avoid, those frequent trips to the blue medical tent. But it has been communicated. And I think Dart understands that he can be who he is, but he has to be smart because this team is being built around him. And he saw last year when he had to miss those 2 games how much the Giants needed him, and they missed him. Like, granted, they have the insurance policy of Jameis Winston, who's been in the league and can be a more than capable backup. But I think Dart has heard the message. Now we need to see if he gets the message, and I believe we'll see that this season. But it's been communicated with him. And I think what you want to see out of him this year is how can he take his game forward? Because he still has a lot to prove this year. He still has a lot to prove as can he, can this offense make explosive plays? Can this offense, get to the heights that they hope it can get to once Neighbors is healthy? Because obviously that caps everything. But that's going to be imperative for that. That's why it's imperative for Jackson Dart to stay healthy, because a lot is riding on his shoulders. And if they're going to use his legs, then he's got to be smart, not taking those hits. And I think this offense, obviously, John Harbaugh's offenses love to run the ball. They're going to have a lot of people running, so they don't need him to just, take those risks.
Right. And finally, I just want to talk about Brian Burns. He's been in New York for a while now. He's still dangerous as ever. But have you seen kind of the weight of losses weighing on him over his time being a New York Giant? And how have you seen him kind of maybe step into the leadership role even more this offseason?
I'll answer the second question first because I think it's really interesting. Because what I've seen from Brian Burns, just my year and a half being around the team, is the dude is a competitor. The dude's a warrior. I hate to use that word as a cliche, but he's the way he plays, the way he wants to basically be on the field, it has inspired his teammates around him. Like when I jumped on the beat in December 2024, the Giants were mired in a losing streak. Burns is still out there giving his all, giving his best effort, and you can see how his teammates were responding to that. And is being encouraged by him. Last season, all-pro linebacker, had his best season, still going after quarterbacks, despite a losing season. And that's why it will not be a surprise if he's named a captain this year, because he clearly represents what you want your Giants' best players to be. I mean, he's incredible pass rusher. He plays hard. He competes. He walks the walk, And I think that's what you really enjoy with this new defense is how is Brian Burns going to take that leadership role now that Dexter Lawrence is now in Cincinnati? How will he take that step forward even more? And he told us the first day of training camp, like, look, there's still meat on the bone. There's stuff I can do to get even better. And this is a dude who had double-digit sacks last year, made the All-Pro second team. And so he's still hungry. And when your best players are hungry, everybody's going to get in line behind that. And I think that's important, especially with Abdul Carter. There's a lot of potential with Abdul Carter being better in his second year. But when you see a Brian Burns have that same level of hunger, if you're Carter going into year 2, that's going to rub off on you. That's going to make you want to be like, hey, I got to take my game up to another level. Everybody knows what happened with him last year with being benched and whatnot. But he knows that, hey, if I'm going to be a better player, who better to look at than Brian Burns? And so that's kind of what Brian Burns means to his team. And you mentioned the losing. This is a player who's been on a lot of losing teams, even in Carolina. So he's had to bear that responsibility. And I know he would love to taste a winning season because he has played incredible. He's been a great player his whole career. I don't know if it's weighed on him, but you can tell at times last year it's, it got to him. I mean, just like it got to everybody. Like the Giants lost, they were 4-13 last year, 3-14 in 24. Like that's 27 losses, man. That's a lot to deal with. So like to me, it weighs on you. And so I think that's also motivating Burns, just like it's motivating several players to say, hey, we've been tired of losing. We need to get better. And with John Harbaugh here, there's hope that they can do enough to kind of, reverse some of that losing.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting season with the New York Football Giants. Now, of course, they are taking on the AFC South this year. And the first game that they play the AFC South is going to be a reunion. That would be the Tennessee Titans heading up to New York to take on the Giants as Titans offensive coordinator Brian Daboll shows back up in New York City. Now, of course, I mentioned Brian Daboll returning back to New York. What do you think is going to be the reaction to him from fans when they see him on the field? I'm pretty sure they're going to put the camera on him or something.
It will be interesting to say the least. I mean, look, they fired him. The Giants fired Daboll midseason last year. Um, it's going to be interesting. I think that at once people are going to probably boo because they remember how bad his last 3 years got. But he is the last Giants coach to win a playoff game. So people will probably remember that first year where he had when he was coach of the year, but the last three were just such a drag that he will probably get a tough reaction. But I also think that the best thing that you could say about Daboll's tenure is that he's responsible for Jackson Dart being here. So if Dart becomes the quarterback that they hope he can be, people will give Daboll hopefully a lot more credit for that. But it's going to be interesting because, like you said, it's going to be a reunion game, and he's not the only one coming back to MetLife Stadium. And we're going to get, I'm sure we're probably going to get into that right now. But yeah, it's going to be a fun game because Daboll's back, Wan'Dale Robinson is back, Cordell Flott is back, Daniel Bellinger is back. So it's going to be a fun game with some old friends.
Definitely going to be a good game with some old friends. We're going to get into one of those old friends in a second. But first, we got to talk about this Giants offensive line. They're going to have probably a pretty big problem or two in the middle of that Titans defense. If you didn't know, I'm speaking of Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers. These two behemoths are going to be in the middle of that defense, wreaking havoc. And, it's going to be imperative for the New York Giants to block them. So how concerned and how big of a concern should blocking those two be for the New York Giants? I mean, are they going to have nightmares about these two before the game?
Probably not, because the Giants linemen are so confident. Like Andrew Thomas, left tackle, Jermaine Illuminor, right tackle. They are two brothers who are confident as all get out. Like Jermaine Illuminor believes highly in himself. Andrew Thomas, one of the best left tackles in the league. I don't think he's really, intimidated. He probably is going to relish the challenge. So you start with those two. They book in. Illuminor re-signed this year with the Giants. So you got your tackles bookended. The interior of the Giants line is where the questions were going to begin, because we're going to start with obviously left guard John Running and center John Michael Schmitz. They have, they've been okay, but they have not been up to the level that some would have expected, especially Schmitz, being drafted a few years ago. And so the question is going to be, how well will they hold up? Just because that's kind of where maybe one of the weaker links of the Giants offensive line is, even though they started last year and the Giants do return 4 starters, which is going to help immensely for continuity. That's going to help that matchup too, because they obviously know each other. But the interior line is going to be very important for the Giants to get better. And the other part of that interior line is right guard Francis Mauigoa. We call him CC. That's his nickname. He's going to be a rookie, possibly starting at right guard. He was a 10th overall pick that was acquired in the Dexter Lawrence trade. So you're asking a right guard to deal with some monsters in the middle, who also, by the way, played tackle in college. He's still learning how to be an NFL guard. So there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some challenges. And obviously, he's going to get challenged in week 2 with the Rams, with Myles Garrett, and, possibly a future Hall of Famer in Aaron Donald if he decides to come back.
Right.
He's going to be tested right away just in those first, week 2 and then week 3. But I think it's going to be a good test for him. Like the Giants are really high on Mauigoa. He has looked the part. He's done very well at right guard. He seems to be listening and taking in great advice. And so I think it's going to be a good matchup. I think it'll be really interesting, because I think that game will be critical for the Giants, because they have a tough task the first 2 games with Dallas and at the Rams in LA. Both of those are going to be primetime games as well. So this is going to be a must. This is a must win for the Giants, and it's going to start, as you said, with winning in the trenches against those two monsters in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. Now, of course, you mentioned him earlier. That would be Wan'Dale Robinson. He's one of the few new weapons for Cam Ward this season on offense, and of course, he's very familiar with the New York Giants, the field, and all those different things. So how many problems can you think Wan'Dale Robinson can actually create for this New York Giants secondary, especially since he's very aware of a lot of the guys that are still there?
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of trash talking, I'm imagining. There's going to be a lot of fun talking. because Wandale went up against those guys for multiple years, and now he gets to go against them in a game. So you can bet Wandale's going to want to put on a show back at MetLife Stadium against his teammates. It's going to be interesting. I mean, the secondary was a concern last year, especially cornerback 2 opposite Paulson Adebo. The Giants tried to shore that up with getting Greg Newsome in free agency from the Browns.
No, hold on. He came from the Jaguars because he got traded to the Jaguars.
That's right. Excuse me. I forgot. Yeah. I apologize.
Because the Jaguars would like to probably forget he got traded there because he really wasn't great there. But I digress. You go ahead.
No, thank you for that. No, thank you. Again, I've been so busy with training camp, I'm getting stuff mixed up, but thank you for that. So the Giants got Greg Newsome. He's obviously penciled in at cornerback 2, but that battle is still going on. So this is going to be interesting. I think with Wandale's speed and ability to be reliable on third down, create yards after catch, it's going to be really interesting to see what he does going forward. And obviously he knows, again, this Titans defense will probably, not the Titans defense, the Giants defense, knows what he's capable of. So it should be fun. It should be real friendly. And I forgot, there's also going to be what I was thinking about defense. Giants defensive coordinator, Jannard Wilson.
Yes.
With the Titans the last 2 years. So that's going to be another reunion in play. It will be interesting. But yeah, Wandale versus this Giants defense will be fun because obviously he brings that speed element in the slot. But it should be fun seeing what Wandale could do.
Yeah, and then definitely, you want to throw the other ones. You got Daniel
Bellinger.
What's the last name? Bellinger. Thank you. You got Daniel Bellinger. You also have Austin Slotman. You have on that offense, basically right. Former Giants that will be going against this Giants defense, just like they have in practice. And of course, you want to throw in there Brian Callahan, who's the quarterbacks coach who used to coach the Tennessee Titans last year. And who else we want to throw in here? Let's see. Oh, Cordell Flott. You got him on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, it's a lot of different matchups here. Like, boy, it's a lot of reunions going on in this game.
It's like the team swapped a lot of key pieces and said, "Hey, yo, here you go, here you go, here you go," and we're gonna be in September. Let's have some fun.
Right. It's funny to me. It's really, really funny to me. Now, of course, I do have to mention Brian Burns, of course, Abdul Carter, and Thibodeau. They'll be a nice tandem. I think they will be a nice tandem this year. And if for Giants fans, they're hoping they will be a great tandem. They're going against the Titans offensive line. The last 5 games, they kind of got their act together, played well. However, people are still kind of looking at them a little sideways, trying to figure out what they're going to be and who they are. Now in this matchup, do you kind of tip the scales to the Giants guys, or do you kind of tip it to the Titans guys, which, of course, one of those is Austin Slotman. The right guard spot is kind of up for grabs right now in terms of competition. So, with those things out there, would you kind of tip it more towards those edge rushers and things like that with the Giants, or go with maybe a rebuilt Titans offensive line?
Well, I will just say this. If you had to face an all-pro linebacker edge rusher, a young edge rusher who could possibly take a better leap this year, and Kayvon Thibodeau, who's a proven edge rusher, there's not many O-lines I would want to put in front of them and say, I don't think y'all can do it. I don't think so. But it's going to be interesting. It'll be a great matchup. I mean, obviously, the Titans know that protecting Cam Ward is going to be important. So this will be a good test for them to see if they can protect Cam Ward against a trio of edge rushers that Brian Daboll is very familiar with. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that matchup goes. I mean, I gave that slight edge to the Giants edge rushers only because I'm more familiar with them. But I do think that knowing what the Giants did to try to protect Jackson Dart, the Titans, I'm sure, did the same thing to protect Cam Ward. So that's going to be a key matchup to see kind of how they keep Ward healthy, because Burns is coming. Carter is going to want to make an impression. And Kayvon is in a free agent year, so every game for him is going to be critical for him to kind of, play for his next contract. So it should be a fun matchup.
Definitely, indeed. That'll be a good one with a lot of reunions going on September 27th. But of course,
family affair. It's a family affair.
Right. It's definitely going to be a family affair. What isn't going to be a family affair is when the Giants go to Houston and face the Houston Texans. That could go from family affair to a bloody Sunday all in,
Woo.
in one time. And speaking of bloody, I mean, how scary is the Texans defense? You got Freddie, you got Jason, you've got Michael Myers, you've got Jigsaw, and then you have the Houston Texans defense. So what do you think of this the abilities of that Houston Texans defense and what they can do?
I mean, I just got a reminder listening to a podcast the other day,
Hmm.
just what that defense has. I mean, I remember Will Anderson in college. He was a terror. And the
Hmm.
fact that he has lived up to that hype is frightening because that dude was a monster at Alabama. He is now doing the same thing in the NFL as a game record. And then you mentioned,
Hmm.
Hunter, those guys over there. I mean, D'Amico Ryan's got some dogs over there. He has got some dogs that are going to be woofing, and they're going to be wanting to get a piece of Jackson Dart, which is why it's got to be careful for him not to run crazy because you go look and see Will Anderson chasing you down. Good luck. Will Anderson ain't gonna let up on the hit. But you got some dogs over there. So I think that's going to be a big test for the Giants, especially for a team that did not play well on the road last year. They only won
Hmm.
they only won one road game, and that was at the Raiders in a game where the Raiders were basically, you know, punting on the season at that point. So Jackson Dart has only won one road game so far in his young career. So it's going to be critical that the Giants come out on the road and make a statement against a team that's probably going to have, if not, if they're at worst, what, top five defense in the league.
Right.
This will
Right.
be a chance to make a statement. This will be a chance for Dart to make a statement, for this
Hmm.
offense to make a statement, really, against the Texans. So I'm looking forward to that game being a chance to say, okay, what does this team have on the road? Because we saw on the road, they were not a team that could hold it together.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Speaking of just kind of the individual matchups, going from the macro to the micro, we got to talk about Malik Neighbors. If he is healthy in this game, then we can see a little LSU versus LSU with him versus Derek Stingley Jr. Man,
Mm.
how much would you be looking forward to that type of matchup on a Sunday? I know I am.
I would love it. I mean, we all would love it. I mean, my hope is that Malik Neighbors, whether he plays week one or not, will be rounding into shape. So that game will
Hmm.
be, him getting more revved up, more comfortable. So he is, feeling more like himself. And man, Derek Stingley, I just remember that freshman year at LSU. He was,
Oh yes.
I mean, how crazy is it on that 2019 LSU team? The best cornerback on that team was a true freshman who was maybe the best cornerback in the country, and he's also lived up to his reputation too. Like that defense is really well constructed, man. Like
Very.
I think it's gonna be a great matchup. Like Neighbors is gonna gear up for it. If Odell Beckham makes the roster, by the way, which is another subplot to this
Hmm.
Giants year,
Hmm.
he's gonna probably be in Malik's ear. Like, hey, let him know who the real LSU dog is. He'll
Hmm.
be gassing him up. So that matchup will be a fun one to see kind of how Neighbors first of all is in shape by that point. If he is
Hmm.
more like himself, but he'll be welcomed with another fellow Tiger who's going to be ready to prove himself too.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it's going to be a fun one if both of those guys are healthy. One guy that took his health to another level this offseason, as well as some hoping his mental health in terms of how he handled a few things and the mental stability to withstand things, is CJ Stroud. He dropped about 20 pounds this offseason, changed his whole workout plan, did a lot of different things. Only drunk water this offseason. Did not drink any other drinks at all. It was just water. So
Cheers
he's
to
done a lot
that.
of things. I hear you. I hear you there. But he only drunk that this offseason. So, he's preparing himself for a big season of expectations and trying to get that extension that Will Anderson Jr. got after his third year. But the Giants defense, of course, going against that Houston offense, you think of CJ Stroud, but you also got to remember the offensive line. They did bring in Braden Smith from the Indianapolis Colts and also brought in Wyatt Teller from the Cleveland Browns, kind of try to bolster it, give it a few veterans, things like that. But the Giants defense is still with Burns and Thibodeau and Abdul Carter. They've got some players that can cause problems for the Houston Texans offensive line. So does this matchup, in your opinion, kind of favor still the Giants defensive line, or do you give the Houston Texans, who kind of tried to bring in the veterans and build up the offensive line, do you give them a little bit more respect in terms of what they put out there and what they're trying to put together?
Well, I think for this matchup, from what you're telling me, this sounds like a matchup where we're going to have to see the Giants' D tackles put in some work to stop the run. Because stopping the run has been something the Giants have not done well the last 2 years. And so you lose Dexter Lawrence, who the run defense was poor even with him. You bring in DJ Reader, you bring in Shelby Harris. You got a second-year guy in Darius Alexander. It's going to be critical for them to be a force in the middle to make the Texans' run game not be effective, so that way you can focus on containing C.J. Stroud. Because obviously C.J. Stroud has had his ups and downs. And so if you want to make it easier on him, I think it's going to be really up to that interior line to win the middle so that you can have your Burns, Carter, and Thibodeau's cook on the edge and make life hell for C.J. Stroud. So I think it's going to really come down to, can the Giants' interior line make a statement? Because really that's going to be important. Because obviously, like I said,
yes.
Well, that means you're going to have to ask me to talk about Cam Scatteroo and Tyrone Tracy. Which I'm surprised you haven't asked me about Scatteroo yet, because I figure everyone wants to know about Cam Scatteroo. Well, I think that Montgomery makes it interesting because obviously we know what he did. We know his reputation. That dude is a productive running back. I want to see the Giants' run game. I want to see the Giants' run game not just improve. Obviously it was a top 5 running attack last year, but I kind of want to see what they're going to do against a tough run defense. Like, obviously, Cam Scatteroo, everyone loves him for just being willing to take on defenders head on. You're not going to be able to do that against guys like Anderson and Hunter all the time. You might, but you're not going to do it. You're going to have to find ways to get your yards where you can. So this will be a tough one. This is going to be a test for this run-heavy John Harbaugh, Matt Nagy offense, if they can find running lanes on this Texans defense. So I guess, until proven otherwise, I'm going to take the Texans run game only because until I see it, I have no faith in this Giants run defense, until we see how they've improved. Because last year, people were running out of that will. I need to see them improve before I can say I trust them in a matchup. And maybe they will, but we got to see it.
All right. Well, we shall see what happens. But, of course, we got to move on to the next game. That next game doesn't get that much easier. You're going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're hosting them November 22nd. Now, I'll mention why it doesn't get any easier. Because the Jacksonville Jaguars had the number 1 rush defense in the NFL last year, only giving up 86 yards per game on the ground. So, they bring back everybody except for Devin Lloyd, who signed with the Carolina Panthers on a big deal the offseason. How tough is it?
Will he find those lanes? The Giants, again, they were the 5th leading run offense last year, but interior blocking is going to be important, busting up holes. The good news is they do have a weapon this year that can help with that. The Giants are going to be a stretch of games for the Giants where I think the schedule hurts them because they have a break because they play the Commanders on a Thursday night before that game. So they have 10 days off. But they play the Jaguars, they go to the Colts, they get the 49ers at home, and they're at the Seahawks. That game starts a 4-game stretch that I think is where the season is going to be extremely difficult for the Giants. And so I think that's going to be a game where if the Jaguars run defense is geared up to slow down Scatteroo and Tracy, then Jackson Dart's going to have to find a way to win through the air. And it will be a test for him because you need these receivers to step up. And obviously he's going to use his tight ends. He's going to obviously use Isaiah Likely, who they just signed this offseason, Theo Johnson. They're going to, he's got more weapons around him to help him out to test that Jaguars defense through the air. So it might be a game where, hey, you might need Jackson Dart to sling the ball a little bit more. And we're going to see if he's up to that because he's been more methodical. He's been obviously dynamic when he needs to be, but that's a game where he cannot get hurt. Because if he gets hurt that game and you're forced to run the ball a bunch, that's a problem. And then you bring in, and let's say he gets hurt, you bring in Jameis Winston, who is not afraid to take chances.
Right.
Anything can happen with that. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to see how well the Giants can not only run the ball against that defense, but how much if Dart has to use his arm more. Can he carry that burden? Because we didn't really see him do a lot of that last season as a rookie.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Definitely didn't see a lot of that. But, of course, one guy that's going to be the focal point of his offense is Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has kind of been up and down during his career. He had an up into the season until the last game against Buffalo. But, definitely with 15 touchdowns, I believe 1 interception to close out the season. Definitely was a good way to finish. Unfortunately, he didn't win in the playoffs. But he is the focal point of this team, and he has had moments where he's been outstanding and moments where he hasn't, which leads me to believe that, of course, there is a plan to attack him. And you mentioned Denard Robinson actually was the Titans' defensive coordinator for a couple of years. So he's seen Trevor Lawrence. Denard Wilson, I'm sorry. Denard Wilson. I don't know why I want to call him Robinson for some reason. But anyway, Denard Wilson has been the defensive coordinator for the Titans for a couple of years. So he's seen Trevor Lawrence. So kind of if you put yourself in maybe a defensive coordinator's shoes or anything of that nature, how would you attack a Trevor Lawrence?
Well, let's see. I would definitely trust that Denard Wilson, from what we've heard, is going to be aggressive. We've heard he wants to be aggressive. And you probably know better than me watching the Titans that that's what he likes to do. And so I think for him, it's going to be key to throw as much as Trevor Lawrence as you can. Bring pressure from the edges. You got your, again, we got you got your inside linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, Marvell Reese, who are going to make it hard for Lawrence to find holes in the middle of the field because they're going to be long guys basically patrolling everything, and you have the Giants secondary. And so I would just try to throw as much as you can to just confuse him, be aggressive, get him off balance, try to find ways to – I would even try to find ways to get packages where you got Burns, Carter, and Thibodeau on the field at the same time, which the Giants have done before in limited ways. I would try to find ways to do that. But it's going to be a lot. I think Lawrence has been – it's interesting. He hasn't been the quarterback that people thought he was going to be coming out of college, but he's been solid. He's been a solid quarterback. Like, they went to the playoffs last year. Like, I think if you're Jacksonville, you feel pretty confident in what you got with him, even if you don't think he's a, top 5 quarterback. Well, he's not a top 5 quarterback, but even if you don't think he's in like the upper echelon, maybe top 7 or whatever, but you're pretty comfortable with what you got in him. So I will be curious to see what Lawrence does this year, because if I'm mistaken, Trevor Etienne is gone, correct?
Yeah, well, it's Etienne, Travis Etienne. He is gone.
Excuse me, Etienne.
He's with the New Orleans Saints. Yeah,
right.
he done told everybody he's Etienne now. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out how you get Etienne out of ETN, but hey, if the man wants to be called Etienne, I will be calling him Etienne.
No, and give him credit for saying that, because obviously you've been told people have been told one thing for years and years. I can't imagine there's some level of like pressure being like, I'm just going to go along with it. Like, proud of that dude for saying that. But yeah, he's not in Jacksonville, so I think that's going to be interesting to see how the Jaguars offense responds to that. And I think, given Denard Wilson's experience with facing the Jaguars, I think that's going to be interesting to help them kind of design some schemes to work around them.
Yeah, definitely is going to be fun to watch. Of course, another thing that's going to be fun to watch is Travis Hunter. He's more than likely going to be the number 1 corner for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's more than likely going to be facing Malik Neighbors. Boy, oh boy, I am looking forward to seeing that. How excited are you for that matchup?
It would be fun, man. It'll be fun. I hope the Jaguars do the right thing and keep Hunter on defense a lot more. Just bring him on offense every once in a while, but keep him on defense. Let him thrive as the number 1 corner, because he's going to be a special corner. That will be a fun matchup, and I think Malik Neighbors will get very fired up for that matchup. I think Giants fans at MetLife would love to see Travis Hunter, because obviously Travis Hunter, if I'm not mistaken, one of the last times he was in New York was to pick up that Heisman Trophy. So I think that'll be a fun thing for Travis Hunter to kind of be in that spotlight again. But I think it'll be a great matchup. Obviously, good on good, ones on ones. That's what you want to see. You want to see Malik Neighbors, with a young, hungry cornerback trying to make a name for himself. I cannot wait for that. If that happens, Lord willing, please everyone stay healthy. I would love that matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Also, of course, the Jags receivers are the best wide receiver core in the AFC South, in my opinion. Just on paper before the season, I would say. So they're going against this Giants secondary, still trying to figure themselves out. You mentioned Greg Newsome fighting for the second cornerback spot. So how important will the pass rush be to kind of get Trevor Lawrence off his spot and give these cornerbacks an even better chance against these Jaguars' talented wide receivers?
I think it'll be very important because I think the secondary for the Giants wasn't as bad as the run defense was, but there are some guys who know they have to prove themselves. Like Paulson Adebo and at cornerback one, Javon Holland at safety. They were the two big free agent signings last year for the Giants. And they were fine, but they didn't have the dominant impact that you would want. So it's going to be key for them, those two guys, to really kind of step up this year and have an impact. So I think getting a good pass rush will help, but you're going to need that secondary to take a step up, to take a leap up. And I think that's where you're going to challenge guys like Adebo and Holland to really kind of, say, hey, what you got? And they're going to rise up to that challenge. Like both of them have told us in camp, they know last year could have been better for them. So I think that if you put the pass rush on Trevor Lawrence, it will definitely test Adebo, Holland, Tyler Newman, the other safety, and possibly Greg Newsome is going to say, hey, we're going to need you guys to man your jobs and do your job. So it should be an interesting matchup.
All right. Yeah, we do have a comment in the Touring the AFC South inbox from Top Tier 8782. He said, tighten up. He's obviously a Titans fan. And then also, when I mentioned the comment about the wide receivers and the Jaguars being the best wide receiver crew in the AFC South right now on paper, he definitely said we were about to change that wide receiver thing. So, we'll see what happens. But I will tell you this. I do have the Titans as having the second best wide receiver core in the AFC South. When you look at their depth 1 through 5, look at it. Last year, Alec Iomanner and Chim DK finished the season as basically their 1 and 2 wide receivers. This year, those guys are their 4 and 5 wide receivers potentially, because you have Calvin Ridley, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Carnell Tate, and then you have Chim DK and Alec Iomanner, which Alec Iomanner is actually having one of the best camps of anyone actually in Titans land. Pretty much, he's showing up making plays in every single practice. So. He might be pushing for more playing time in terms of maybe eating into some of Calvin Ridley's playing time, to be honest. But of course, I digress. I just had to answer the questions and answer the comments, of course, and give a little background on it, which there is some. But of course, the last game that the Giants see the AFC South is against the Indianapolis Colts on November 29th, right around Thanksgiving. And I tell you who's looking for a Thanksgiving gift. That would be Mr. Sauce Gardner. He has told all the quarterbacks to throw at him. He literally said this to the media. He asked for quarterbacks to throw at him. So how much do you think the Giants will oblige, and how smart is that?
I'll tell you this, man. When I covered Memphis, I followed the AAC a lot. And Sauce Gardner was at Cincinnati one of the best cornerbacks in the country in 2021. I would not throw his way. I just would not advise it. I saw enough of it in college watching him. We saw it here with him with the Jets. I would not advise it. He's begging for it. Do not oblige him. But I'm curious to see kind of how he, holds up for a full year. I think obviously Jackson Dart and those receivers are going to be trying to test him. And you're probably going to put Sauce, on Malik Neighbors, another great matchup. That's going to be tough, man, especially because Sauce Gardner is going to want to prove himself. Because last year he was all right, but he wasn't, the player that he was his first 2 seasons. So I think he's going to want to prove himself for the Colts. I'm surprised you led with Sauce Gardner because that Colts game, what that game is really going to be about, right?
What would that be, kind sir?
I'm just going to tell you, there's a quarterback on the Colts who might want that game a little bit more than Sauce Gardner.
Oh yeah, we gonna talk about him. Oh yeah, we definitely gonna talk about him. Daniel Jones versus his former team.
There
Of
you
course,
go.
we got to talk
There
about
you
that.
go. Yeah, I wasn't trying to jump in front of you, but I was like, I'm surprised you didn't lead with that because that was the first thing I thought
Well, I got a little saucy at first. You know what I'm saying? It got a little
of.
saucy at first.
Hey, man,
But
bring on the sauce, man.
but yeah, as you mentioned, Daniel Jones versus his former team. Of course, it didn't end well. He got cut, asked for the cut, went to the Vikings, then now landed with the Colts. So now he's with the Colts, had a good season up until he got injured, had a fractured leg on one leg, torn Achilles on the other, which I'm still trying to figure out how he played on the fractured leg, but that hurts. What do you think of Daniel Jones and kind of what he's kind of done to remake himself in Indianapolis, despite, being injured and things like that? And what kind of level of concern do you have facing him and him coming against his former team and all the energy he's probably going to bring in that game?
Well, first off, I will give him credit for having a solid season last year before he got hurt. He was playing very well. Good for him. When I wasn't covering the Giants, I was obviously keeping an eye on them. And when it was time for him to go, it was not a surprise. I mean, it was kind of like, hey, this isn't working out. They paid him all that money, and he was not clearly the guy who could elevate the Giants. So I don't think they were losing any sleep about their decision. But I do think it's going to be very interesting to make sure, hey, don't let Daniel Jones cook you for a post Thanksgiving dinner. Don't let him go to work. But obviously, he won't be the only one who the Giants are worried about because obviously they got that man Jonathan Taylor up there. And we just discussed the Giants' run defense has not been great. You got to deal with that dude who has been an effective running back since he got into the league. So I think Daniel Jones is going to have his weapons ready. Alec Pierce, is a dude. So we'll see. But I think the Giants will want to make sure, hey, they're going to wish Daniel Jones well. There's probably going to be some nice well wishes. Obviously, some guys on the team are still very close to him. Darius Slayton, especially the receiver, very close to Daniel Jones. But they're not going to want to lose that game because you don't want to hear about people saying for that week, hey, y'all should have let him go, whatever. But you wish him well, first of all. Like obviously coming back from that injury, Daniel Jones, you want to see him be well. But the Giants are definitely not going to want to lose that game. But like I said, it's coming at a time where they're going to be tested in this 4-game stretch where that Colts game is going to be tough as it is. And then you throw in the Daniel Jones factor, it's going to be a lot of juice in that game that they got to be ready for.
Definitely. Now, of course, the Colts offensive line got to be ready too, and they've lost 3 of their starters in the last 2 seasons. By the way, of course, the last one I mentioned, Braden Smith going to the Texans, but you got Ryan Kelly and you have a guard and Will Fries. They lost to the Vikings last year, so 3 of their 5 are gone. They replaced them. They do believe in their offensive line coach and his development of those guys, but that's a lot of turnover for offensive line and for a Giants team that's looking to get after the quarterback. I mean, should they be salivating just a little bit going into that game?
I mean, if everybody's healthy, because now we're getting into right before December, you want to see how healthy they're going to be. I think it sounds like that's going to be an interesting matchup. Again, the defensive front, like I've said it before, as good as the Giants' pass rush is, your interior line has got to be strong, and you need them to be guys who can create pressure so that those guys from the edge can go wreak havoc. That's going to be the key, I think. And also, I think it's going to be a game where you need your inside linebackers to also be good stopping the run. Because like we said, Jonathan Taylor is a bad man. You're going to need your inside linebackers to be a force stopping the run as well. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. We'll see what happens. Obviously, you change that much O-line, you need those boys to get chemistry. And they should have chemistry by November 29th. But we'll see what happens.
Definitely. And of course, I failed to mention one other thing that I thought about when I thought about the New York Football Giants, the NASCAR package. You could put Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, you could put Reese, and you could also put Brian Burns, potentially all on the defensive line, and recreate the NASCAR package of back in the day when Strahan and Osi Umenyiora and Justin Tuck and those guys all at the same time. So just a thought. But of course, any other matchups, of course, Daniel Jones, of course, Sauce Gardner out there, but any other matchups you're looking forward to in this one?
No, I think you hit on the main ones, man. I think those will be interesting. And again, by that time of the year, you really kind of hope the Giants are playing some meaningful games at this point. And that's really what fans are going to be caring about more than anything. Is that they want to see a meaningful game in November and December. They haven't had that since 2022. So you're hoping that these games are meaningful games in terms of like, hey, they're still fighting for something. There's still something to play for, not just for, hey, the pride of facing Daniel Jones again. So that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping that the Giants are in a good situation record-wise to where these games are going to have some meaning to it besides the personal stuff.
Right. Well, I know one matchup I'm looking forward to. That'd be Tyler Warren versus maybe Arvell Reese. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. That's going to be interesting right there because Tyler Warren, I believe, is going to be a tight end that reaches 1,000 yards this year for the Colts. He had 800 plus yards last year, actually as a rookie. So, and it was plus Michael Pittman Jr. is gone now. They need a clear number 2 weapon. Yeah.
See, I forgot that Pittman left. I like Pittman a lot, so that's going to be interesting to see. But Tyler Warren, that's another dude I remember in college being a bad boy, and he lived up to that when you mentioned his numbers coming in strong as a rookie. So Tyler Warren up in the middle, Arvell Reese, Big Ten matchup, right? That's the open Big Ten matchup. So that's going to be real interesting to see kind of how those two handle each other. But also, I think Tremaine Edmonds is going to be a big part of that too. Like Tremaine Edmonds is going to be the green dot, the captain in the middle. I think he's going to be more important in that than Reese because Edmonds has been around the league. He knows what to do. It won't just be Reese's responsibility. It more will be Tremaine Edmonds' job to kind of make sure that Tyler Warren doesn't cook.
All right. Well, we have gone through the AFC South, talked about the Giants offseason, and kind of got everyone prepared to see these New York Football Giants under the direction of John Harbaugh. Thank you, Mr. Evan Barnes, for coming on the show. Newsday, if you haven't checked out his work, I suggest you do. Now, Evan, if you can, tell everyone they can find you on social media and where they can find your work.
Sure thing. First thing is check out Newsday. We got some stuff up there about Giants training camp. We'll be posting a lot of stuff there, of course. Also, I guess I was going to say Twitter, but I guess it's called X now. So X Evan_B. Yeah, I think that's probably the 2 places I'm going to tell people because that's probably there. I mean, if you're on Blue Sky, I'm on there, Evan Barnes. But, Blue Sky is kind of like, I don't know if people are using Blue Sky, but you know what I mean. It's still Twitter.
Yeah.
My company website. So that's where you can find me.
Okay. All right. Of course, you can find me, of course, on the artist formerly known as Twitter. You see what I did there? The artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. Of course, on Instagram and Threads, you can find me there at that's THA, not THE_general_MP. Touring the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And we are also on YouTube at the Mike Patton Network, where you can click the bell and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Of course, Touring the AFC South, sponsored by Mitch Lux Life. Not only candles, but an experience. All right. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.